To the bottom of this crazy report on this man, Joe Biden. And it's not crazy. It's incredible what was documented. Crazy stuff was documented, but it was effectively documented. And we have an obligation to understand it, to get to the bottom of it, because the fake news, they dominate. We have to push back all day long, right? They change the subject, and too many on our side, conservative media, follow along. Just start blowing the story off. All the talking heads, if they talk, weirdly, we listen.
This is a man who is sharp, who is on top of his game, who knows what's going on. The outcome of this report, he was cleared completely, while Donald Trump faces 40 federal felony charges.
And this partisan hit job by somebody that is looking for
That's a Democrat we just played.
No, I'm talking about the special counsel who's looking for a better job in the next Trump administration is not going to dissuade Americans who actually see what the real world impact on their lives is of Joe Biden's administration.
This is a report that went off the rails. It's a shabby work product. This is, again, a result of a report that was written in a particularly shabby and shoddy way.
Then made gratuitous, unnecessary, and inaccurate personal remarks, and those are improper. He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
So we are all wrong. When we look and see what we see, we're all wrong. We're all imagining it. We're not. Imagine how bold they are. They lie. So many lies right there. Let's go over some basics that we now know about Joe Biden. In this report from Robert Hur about the documents that he scurried away at offices and houses, President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. They will come right out and say that that is not true, but it's in black and white and it's on page 1. Next, please, and everybody has to understand this. At least 3 times, Mr. Biden read from classified entries aloud to his ghostwriter nearly verbatim. 3 times. 3 times that happened. And there's a tape. Everyone seems to be talking about, well, we want to hear the transcript of the interview. You want to hear the tape. I want to hear the tape of him giving away secrets to some guy with a tape recorder, and we just might get that. Next, please. After learning of the special counsel's appointment in this matter, Mr. Biden's ghostwriter deleted audio recordings he had created of his discussions with Mr. Biden during the writing of Mr. Biden's 2017 memoir. The recordings had significant evidentiary value. It's interesting, they bothered President Trump's gardener, President Trump's butler. Here's a guy who's with the tape recorder who deleted the recordings once he found out that Joe Biden was under investigation. Why did he do that? They don't tell us. But we know that the FBI, given all their technology, they were actually able to recover the audio from the machine, from the tape recorder. Next, please. After telling the special counsel's office what he had done, the ghostwriter turned over his computer and external hard drive and consented to their search. It appears the FBI recovered all deleted files. How about that? I think we got one more. We considered whether to charge the ghostwriter with obstruction of justice, but we believe the evidence would be insufficient to obtain a conviction and therefore declined to prosecute him. Not exactly saying the guy is innocent, are they? Again, the guys who cut Donald Trump's lawn have been hassled about the documents case. This guy is off scot-free. He deleted material, huh? And it's all over the house, the garage, the garage, the garage, the garage. What have we been told consistently by the left, right? There's a difference. This is somehow fine. Donald Trump, he is reckless and dangerous and a threat to national security when it comes to these documents.
When the classified documents were found, it was self-reported. The president directed his team to ensure that any classified documents were returned immediately.
You self-report, which is exactly what the president did, self-reported.
His lawyers, his team did the right thing. He was surprised that the records were there. And when his lawyers found out and his team found out that they were there, they turned it over to their archives.
I've turned over the boxes. They've turned over the boxes to the archives, and we're cooperating fully.
No, they're not. Absolutely not. That's all wrong. And even though they say it and their media allies pick it up,
President Biden, who proactively says, I found this National Archives, I need to return this to you, and let me get it to you.
Biden quickly returned the documents, fully cooperated, and even sat for 5 hours of interview.
Joe Biden said, take whatever you need, look at whatever you want. I'm a totally open book on this.
It shows that Joe Biden went over and beyond to provide transparency in as much as he cooperated with the investigations.
No, they were not fully cooperating, actually. And they weren't fully cooperating, at least for 4 years, because the special counsel makes clear that Joe Biden was encountering, most likely, this confidential stuff all over his house, basically every week at least, for 4 years. Then it suddenly makes the news under Trump, and then they get nervous. Oh, we want to turn it over. But they don't turn it over right away. It's kind of interesting, and very few people know this. When did they find that secret stuff in the Penn Biden Center? November 2nd of 2022. Okay. Now, when did they get around to making phone calls about it and doing more searches? 7 weeks later. 7 weeks later, they searched the house of Joe Biden and the garage. And they're still not done. It takes them another 3 weeks to go into Biden's den and find even more stuff. And then they're still not done. On the 20th of January, they still are looking around the house. Now, what's happened in the meantime? How many times has Joe Biden been there? You know, he goes every weekend. That's not exactly right away, is it? No, it's not. And how about this? Joe says, we helped. We said anything you want, please. Not true. No matter how, Joe says it probably means it's not true. And here it's not true.
I made voluntarily, no one's had to threaten to do anything. Voluntarily open every single aperture I have with the house, offices, everything for them to come and look and spend hours searching my home. Invited them.
Not quite, actually. One of those guys searching their home found something, and Joe didn't want to give it to him. And there was a 2-day delay before the FBI got it. And I know this from the report. Exhibit X, if you don't mind. On the evening of January 11th, 2023, counsel traveled to the house in Delaware to search areas other than the garage. Okay. The FBI sent agents to the house that evening to recover the classified material. Now, Bauer, who is Joe's lawyer, informed a guy named Lausch, who works at the Justice Department, that at that time, Bauer did not have Mr. Biden's consent for the FBI agents to search and seize his notebook that contained the marked classified documents. Do you see that? His lawyer says that he doesn't have the consent. The FBI agents, they can't take this stuff. Lausch is the guy from the DOJ. The FBI works for him. What happens next? Well, thus, on Bauer's instructions, Richard Sauber, some guy named Richard Sauber of the White House counsel's office, met the agents at the house and escorted them to the marked classified material found in the notebook in the basement cabinet. Remember, this is classified stuff. Next, please. Agents observed Sauber pick up the notebook and leaf through it. Sauber and the agents eventually found 2 documents with classified markings. After discussions with Lausch, the guy from the Department of Justice, Sauber provided the Foreign Policy Notebook number 2 to FBI agents 2 days later. 2 days later. A White House lawyer had this stuff for 2 days. Joe had it for 2 days. What was up with those 2 days? The FBI wanted it right then and there. That did not happen. They are lying about it, and the lies come to these people very, very easily, don't they? Next.
Best of my knowledge, the kinds of things they picked up are things that from 1974, and stray papers. There may be something else I don't know.
That is a skilled, trained politician who's lying. There may be something else I don't know. You see how he gives himself an out? Stray papers from 1974. Try top secret material related to Iraq and Afghanistan. Not the 1970s, but 2009, 2010, 2011. Sensitive stuff that poses, if disclosed, a grave risk to national security. That's what top secret means. It's a grave risk if it becomes public. Here's something else that nobody knows and the media won't tell us because they're both covering for Joe and they're too lazy to read the report. In later written answers, Mr. Biden wrote that, like presidents and vice presidents before me, I understand that these notes to be my personal property. Now, there is a case to be made for that statement, but he didn't come clean with them and everybody else. This is in October, almost a year after these documents were found. And he didn't answer all of their questions. Did he take the fifth? Take a look at this. He declined to answer several questions about whether he believed his notes contained classified information. He declined to answer. Why didn't he answer? I was told he cooperated fully. Open book. Every aperture, he said. Aperture is open. I'll tell you anything you want. He didn't, and he wouldn't. And it wasn't just this question. It was a lot of questions. And he declined whether he took steps to avoid writing classified information in his notebooks. Joe, we were told all along by your friends in the media, by your friends in Democrat politics, that you were so cooperative. You weren't. And of course, like a lot of politicians, you blame everybody else.
One of the things that happened is that what was not done well is as they packed up my offices to move them, they didn't do the kind of job that should have been done to go thoroughly through every single piece of literature that's there.
They didn't go through the job they should have to look at the literature. There's evidence that suggests Joe Biden is lying, that he was personally involved in packing this material. I alluded to some of it on Friday. I'm going to revisit it in a moment. Now we have to hear from his personal attorney, a guy named Robert Bauer, whose wife, by the way, has a senior position in the Biden White House. That's pretty cozy. Listen to this guy. Talk about denial.
Do you favor releasing them?
Well, it's really a decision that has to take place within the government. It's a classified document.
Counsel,
I'm the president's personal counsel.
Right. Would you recommend
Yes.
that these be made public if they indeed back up your personal record?
Again, there's a process underway. I'm not a specialist in that process, and so I really have to defer to those who have to work through those issues.
Okay. But because just this past week alone, the president, in public remarks, mixed up the leaders of France, Germany, and he referred to Egypt as Mexico. Does the president have any memory problems?
He does not.
We don't see what we see. It's amazing. They say, some of the commentators, well, if you're not a neurologist or a medical doctor, you have no business making any observation about Joe Biden's memory. No, we can do that. We have common sense. We're people and we're citizens. And check out this one from the personal lawyer.
He was saying staff was clearly involved, responsible for the packing. We don't see presidents and vice presidents during transitions packing boxes. But he recognizes now when he looks back on it, maybe more involvement on his part was necessary because it didn't go the way he thought it should have gone.
So we don't see vice presidents or presidents packing boxes. Well, you certainly wouldn't see President Trump packing boxes. We know that did not happen. And when he showed up in Mar-a-Lago, he was still president of the United States. He had access to every little shred of paperwork in the American government. But Joe Biden was observed packing boxes. Not only that, loading a moving truck. It's right in the report. All right, stay with me on this. On January 7, 2017, the Bidens moved furniture and personal belongings out of the Naval Observatory and into the Virginia home using a private moving company. Next, the Bidens paid for the move themselves and packed their own belongings. Wow. Mr. Biden was personally involved in the move. Wow. One military aide recalled seeing him packing by himself and just him moving his stuff one at a time into the truck. Now, why would he do that? Next, please. Secret Service agents saw Mr. Biden moving boxes at the Virginia house during the weekend of his move into that house. Mr. Biden stored papers in several places at the Naval Observatory, including desks, safes, briefcases. Mr. Biden stored classified materials at the Naval Observatory while vice president. Mr. Biden's staff did not go into his desk at the Naval Observatory, and it appears staff retrieved documents from his briefcase only rarely, if ever. So we were unable to determine if those locations contained any documents at the end of the administration. We were unable to determine whether any of Mr. Biden's papers, classified or not, were in the boxes moved out of the Naval Observatory and to Virginia. No one involved recalled packing or moving papers or files